like they should.
I've, I've found that as well.
Not wearing masks. I'm here. I can put my, I have
Got
my
it with
mask
you.
to go.
There we go.
Right.
I keep mine in my car, so I have it ready to go. It is a little awkward when you are not used to doing that, to add that into your.
Right. Every
At this
car I
point,
have that I drive, I have sunglasses, a mask, and a hat.
got to have the gear.
You got to have all, and it's got to be in every car. Otherwise, forget it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks that are joining in, thanks for being here with us. We are getting started a little early tonight. I have a commitment I couldn't get out of, so I appreciate you joining in. And we're going to be discussing racing seats. So we're going to talk about some OE seats that come in your cars and what those look like in crashes and scenarios like that, and how safe they are in general. And then we're going to talk about the benefits of a racing seat. So we've got Mr. Joe Marko from HMS Motorsport with us. And I think Joe has plenty of experience with a variety of different racing seats. As we've talked about before, a couple of weeks ago or about a month ago, we saw a bunch of really interesting videos on high impact, high G load impacts and lower G load impacts, rollover videos, some head and neck restraint videos. And the commonality between all of those things is the driver sitting in a seat. And that's a huge safety component, and certainly not something that we take for granted for those of us that spend time on the racetrack. When you go from a car with a bench seat or just a kind of a flat seat with no bolstering into a fully, bucket racing seat where you're well bolstered, that's a huge performance impact and a huge ergonomic impact on the driver. And I think we all recognize that, but the safety component is the other reason to go to that configuration. And that's what we're here to talk a little bit more about tonight. So thanks again for joining us, Joe. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is, like we talked about, this is something we're going to try to do once a month. Eventually we might end up picking like the second Monday or something. We'll find a date, but Andrew's, his video schedule is always so busy.
I make it difficult.
Tough to work it in there. He's always got to show his face there.
That's right.
He's a frustrated actor. That's his problem.
That really is. You hit the nail on the head there.
Right.
Yeah, out of work actor.
Right. So, so today we're going to talk a little bit about seats. It's going to be a relatively short one, probably about a half hour. If you have some questions, as usual, you can post them up, and we'll try to address the questions as priorities. But we'll talk a little bit about seats. We'll talk a little bit about some stock seats, and probably to start off, what I'm going to do is show you a video. Now, this is an old Schroep video that we had that looked at. We were looking at 4-point belts and using belts and stock seats and stuff. But what I want you to look at is the movement of how much seats compress and stuff. Now, this video, granted, is back to 1988. Seats have improved a lot since 1988. So this is probably an extreme, thing to look at, but at least it'll give you something that's
yeah.
So we're going to pop over here and look at this.
All righty. While Joe's doing that, folks, if you're watching now, you probably have a lot of friends that are interested in learning more about motorsport safety. And part of what we're trying to do here is reach people with this information. So if you can help us out by hitting the like button, the wow face, the love icon, any of those icons, that helps spread awareness. Also, if you want to share this to your personal Facebook page, or maybe you're an admin on a track group, or some way to reach people. We're trying to do this not as necessarily a way to sell product. We're doing this as a way to inform the community about safety related items, and that would help us out greatly. So make sure to share and like the video.
Okay, now I'll just talk through a few things here. So what this is it's an old Golf chassis, and this is showing a 4-point belt, a 4-point Schroep belt with ASM. But the thing I want you to look at is what happens in a frontal impact. So initially, this is a straight frontal. Initially, the body goes forward against, whether it's a 3 or 4-point belt, it goes forward against the belts. And you can see there's how much movement there is. Now, that room behind the person's back, that's not necessarily the belt stretching as much as it is the belts being absorbed into the body. And you can see in the lap how much it is. Now, this is what's called a hybrid 2 dummy, which is anatomically, correct. It's a rubber. And it has sensors in it that measures all the different kinds of loads. So now look at how much compression there is in the
I'm not
bottom.
seeing the screen share, Joe. Sorry to jump
You're
in on
not
you.
seeing the screen share. Did I
I'm
not?
not. Do I need to give you?
Hold it. You didn't give
Yep.
me the rights.
You have rights. Should be good to go.
Now do you see it?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so let me see here. Let me go back here. Here.
So again, if you're watching,
share
this. There we
There
go.
we go.
Just like Joe's sharing his screen, share this with your friends. Thank you.
All right, let's start over. So basically, you heard the little description. So this is a golf chassis. This is showing a impact, a 30G impact. Look at how much the seat compresses. So a seat is going to compress quite a bit, which is one of the reasons factory seats have pretensioners on the seat belts in order to tighten things up as things compress to keep the belt tight to your body. Now, as you go forward, okay, you can see the belts are compressing into the body. They're stretching a little bit. Your head's coming down. That's why we have airbags. So this was before airbags, and that's what would happen to your neck. So the airbag will pop out. That's going to prevent your neck from doing that kind of an extension. Now, as you come back, this is now going to be airbag or no airbag. Notice how the body kind of raises up and it slams back against the headrest. So it's really critical in your seat to have the headrest in a position that's lined up with the center of the nap of the back of your helmet or of your head if you don't have a helmet on. Okay, because that otherwise your neck is going to extend back, and your neck extending back over the seat back is what you get whiplash from. So that's what we're trying to prevent right there. You can see how much. Now notice the seat back doesn't break. Okay, we talked about this last time. Is Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards requires that the seat back must remain upright and does not break. Otherwise, the seat design and the manufacturer fails the test. This is a test of a 4-point belt without any kind of shoulder protection.
Oh man.
And now this is, the lap belt is tight, but because there's no upper rotation of the shoulder, that's called submarining. So the seat compresses and you can slide down under. The looser your lap belt, the worse that might actually be. This is a 5-point belt without any kind of upper shoulder rotation. And there's a crotch belt that wraps around the front of the seat. Now, because it's a 4-point belt, watch, I'm sliding forward, and I'm going to slide forward whatever the distance is from the back of the seat to where the crotch belt is, and I'm going to land my private parts very solidly into that crotch belt, which is why we never have a crotch belt running around the front of the seat. It always has to run through an appropriate substrap hole, which would allow the shoulder belt, the crotch belt to run in plane with your chest.
And that's a pretty serious injury. Nobody wants to have a crotch area injury.
Be wondering if you're going to have kids again after that one. So again, now with a 4-point with upper shoulder rotation with the ASM, you can see that it does a better job of preventing against submarining because the upper body twists just a little bit, kind of like it would with a 3-point belt. And there's a 3-point belt. You can see how the one shoulder is kind of held back more than the other, and that prevents as much submarining. Now, again, this is 1988 before pretensioner, so they do a much better job than what this is. And then a Schrodt 4-point belt with ASM. That's more to show you what the seats are. I'm not really trying to sell something in particular there. Now, one problem I see with stock seats, and here is a picture of a Lotus Elan or a Lotus Elise with the shoulder straps around it. So if you have an M3 or a current model M3, current model M4, and you're saying, well, I want to put belts around the side of the seat. Okay, now this exact configuration, in a Lotus, that you're only looking at about 6 inches there, maybe 7 inches at most between here, these 2 points. In an M3 or M4, you're looking more about 8 or 9 inches between where the belts would come around the side of the seat. This exact configuration, I was at an event at Watkins Glen, and there was a gentleman in a Lotus with this exact configuration, went down into the chute, which is going into the boot, had a mechanical problem with the suspension in the car. The car went across, hit the wall at about probably a 45-degree or 60 to even a 60-degree angle, and then bounced back to the opposite side of the track and hit the wall there. When they found the gentleman,
Man.
he was not wearing seatbelts. The EMT said he wasn't wearing his shoulder belts, and his helmet was sitting in the passenger footwell. So two things happened. First thing is that basically, by virtue of having the belts riding over his shoulder, even though he felt really tight in the car and you really couldn't move outside, because you have an impact, there's so much movement of your body, and you saw how much the belts, absorbed into the body, how much movement there was. When he hit the side, the belt just literally slid off his shoulder on one side, and we hit the other side, he was already out of it in one, so the other belt falls off. Then because he was initially impacted, he was moving up in the seat also. His helmet caught on the back of the seat back, and his chin strap was not tight enough, so it actually knocked the helmet forward off of his head. To give you a better example of what this looks like, this is our good friend Zach. Okay, what we're trying to show here is what happens when you're trying to put the shoulder belts around the outside of the headrest. Now, stop it for a second. So this is our Nagaro seat. Now, this does have shoulder openings, but we put it around the outside. This is about the same width. It's within about an inch of what the M3, M4 is, where the shoulder, where the upper headrest drops down to the shoulder. So this is what you would be looking at if you try to go around the sides in M3, M4. This is our Nagaro seat. The width of the headrest is about the same as what you find in the latest model M3, M4. And what I'd like to show you, even though Zach is tightly in the belt, if he tries to push forward, you can see he's tight and it's holding him in. He's going to feel pretty good driving around the track. But if you have a little bit, let's say you come into a slight impact and the shoulder gets pushed over. Now, why would the shoulder get pushed over? Now, that was our other Zach pushing him, and he's not real strong. So, it doesn't take a very large force, which can happen from an impact with the wall at a little bit of an angle or a rollover or anything, and that shoulder belt's going to be out. The belt is already off the shoulder, and as the person is moving back and forth, the person's basically out of the shoulder. So in a rollover, what you would find is the person would roll to one side, one shoulder would come out, then he rolls back to the other side, the other shoulder comes out, and then basically you have no shoulder belt on whatsoever. So it's something that it's not allowed by the Porsche Club. It's not something anybody should try. And it doesn't matter if when you saw him slide out of the belt, there was nothing that was causing the belt where it goes around the headrest to move out to the outside. So any kind of a attachment that you might do to keep the belts together at the headrest isn't going to help with the shoulder. Now, some people might say, well, I could add a sternum strap, which would go across the shoulder belts. So, Zach, show where a sternum strap would be. So a sternum strap would go across and would kind of hold the shoulder belts together. The problem is that if you're wearing a head and neck restraint, and now if you start to submarine a little bit or come under it, then the sternum strap would be up to your neck. So a lot of clubs do not allow, NASCAR, for example, doesn't allow sternum straps for that exact reason. So this
I don't think I've ever heard of a sternum strap.
So sternum strap is something that you see. There's some belts. There's some belts that actually are built in with sternum straps, and they're popular with some people. Think that it's a great idea. With a combination with a head and neck restraint, it's definitely not recommended. Depending on how high the sternum strap is and how far you move, you could actually catch your neck. Could get pretty close to the sternum strap.
Especially if you're sliding down like those videos saw, until the crotch belt catches you.
Right. So sternum straps are not allowed with either FIA or SFI 16.5 or 16.6. They are allowed with SFI 16.1, but it's not something I recommend. So a picture over here on the left, because I'm still screen sharing, here's a very nice and neat solution to keep the straps over the seat. But as you saw from the little video with Zach, it's not the problem with the belts sliding off the seat. The problem is that it's just too much distance. And even if you're a big guy with big shoulders, the fact that is that with that separation, with any kind of a side to side movement, your shoulder is going to dump out of it. And once one shoulder dumps out, it's not going to fall back underneath it. So that's something that's the reason why, you don't want to, look at this as some sort of a solution. It's just that, if you have a seat with an integrated headrest, the only thing you can do is get another seat if you want to use harnesses. Otherwise, stick with your 3-point harnesses, leave all your airbags intact, leave all your stock OE stuff the best it is, and don't mess with anything else. Never. Now somebody might say, well, I'll do this, but I'll wear my 3-point harness in addition, so that way I've got the protection. You never want to mix two harnesses in the seat, because if I put a 3-point belt
info.
and it's coming down this angle right here, what happens is I've got now a triangle between this belt and my neck is riding in this little triangle that's sitting there, which is also a pretty bad thing. So that's going to give you the same effect as a sternum strap. So,
well, that makes a lot of sense. The distance, too wide of harnesses, that's important. So, for people that want to run maybe your, stock seats, you want to run the 4-point Schroth belts, unless you've got the right, seat setup, you really need to think about that, the angle that you're going to have on the straps, where are they going to line up on your shoulders so that you don't see what happens in the videos that Joe share. Joe, we got one question and a comment here as well, and also just wanted to shout out to Zach for doing the video for us. Looking good, Zach. Chris says those videos are why I bought the Schroth Profi 2 ASM belts. So Chris is running the Schroth Profi 2. So that's awesome. Appreciate that, Chris. And Pablo was wondering your thoughts on harness bars. How safe or unsafe? Is that a good direction to go now, or do you want to hold off on that one?
Yeah, no, I mean, a harness bar can definitely, as long, so there's a difference between a harness guide bar and a harness bar itself. So a harness bar, if you're going to wrap harnesses to it, it needs to be able to take, if you're going to have two people, driver and passenger mounted to it, that bar needs to take about a 6,000 pound load at peak. So you need not only connection typically to the B pillars, but you need some kind of support either forward or backward from sort of the center or just slightly off center of that harness bar that's going to take the load of those belts going forward. So if it doesn't have that center support, and you're going to go over the bar and maybe go down to the D&E points, which are the 2 rear lap belt points on either side, then what you want to do is then that becomes a harness guide bar. So what happens is by going over the bar and not wrapping to the bar, but going down to the D&E points, you're reducing the peak load that would be placed on that particular bar. The other thing to be concerned of with the harness bar is what's the height of the harness bar. The harness bar, just like it would be in a roll bar and a cage within the car, you want to make sure that that harness bar is at the appropriate height so that the belt's coming off of your shoulder and clearly passing with a clean passage through the seat is going to go back at a 0 degree angle and down to 20 with a harness bar. If you're going over a harness bar and down, then the downward angle, as long as it's like maybe 45 degrees, that's okay. What you never want to do is go through the seat and then just go directly down and mount the belts to the floor through the opening in the seat. Because what you're doing there is you're basically putting it's like not having a seat there and just having the belts going over your shoulder down to the floor. That's going to result in a compression load.
Right. So triangulation, similarly to welding or designing anything that's going to have load passing through it, you want angles to create triangulation.
Triangulation.
Yeah, triangulation.
Say that 4 times.
That's right. Hopefully that answers your question, Pablo. And Pablo was our winner of a trivia question a couple weeks ago. So I think Pablo is the proud owner of some new Valero. So Pablo, we can match
he
now.
Contacted us as quickly as he possibly could. That was great.
Awesome.
Hopefully he's had a chance to get on the track and try it, although maybe not.
Good deal. Well, hopefully we'll see him at the track. I know Pablo and I've been talking about some events we might run across each other at. So that could be fun. I'll wear my Valero too. On harness bars, guys, if you have one and you have questions about the angle behind the seat, like Joe said, that angle behind the seat's really important for mounting your seat belts to the harness bar and where they go, how they mount to the floor. There should be some guidance when you purchase the bar and the belts, but if you have questions, just reach out to the staff at HMS Motorsport, and they're happy to work with you on your specific application as well.
This, I wanted to show this one picture up here. Now what this is, you know, with a rally belt, typically, or a quick fit belt, the belts generally should go between the shoulder belt openings and never to the outside. Now the Mini has a really narrow center. Although the belts can go through there, they do get kind of crumpled up a little bit and it makes it tight. So this guy made a bracket that fit over top of his headrest that provided a guide. So this, and it's still close, but it gets them a little bit wider. So that's kind of a creative thing. In most cases, the Mini's pretty unusual in that the headrest posts are only about 4 inches apart. So this was a nice solution. But in general, without having any kind, you want to make sure that if you have a 4-point harness with a stock seat, that the 2 shoulder belts go through the opening of the headrest and not around it, unless there's some special setup like this gentleman is created here. So that was just, I thought that was kind of a creative thing that he did there. Couple of things about seats, and I'll go back and get off the pictures there because we don't have a lot of time tonight. But I want to talk about 2 things that are really important with race seats, or maybe 3 things. So first thing is if you're racing and you have an FIA seat is technically good for 5 years. That's what the FIA rating, and there's a date. All the new seats have the date in which they expire, December 31st of X year. Now, some clubs say that if you have an expired FIA seat, that you can add a seat back brace of some sort to the back of the seat. Now, adding a seat back brace to the back of the seat is definitely one thing you don't want to do, is bolt it to the back of an FIA seat. You don't want to go drilling holes anywhere in your FIA seat because they're designed and they go through a lot of testing, and manufacturers have to go through a lot of work in order to get their seat back with the loads that FIA places in all the different directions to pass the test. And as soon as you drill a single hole anywhere in that composite or carbon shell, the potential for failure of that seat increases exponentially. So when you look at a seat back brace, so this is an IO port one. This is another one that typically has a bracket here that then attaches to something to the harness bar. This is a somewhat bigger one, but you notice it has a pad, a fairly rigid pad on the back of it. This is what you want to have fitting against the back of your seat. And you would like this brace to be as big as possible and to cover as much area, geographical area, as possible between just below where the opening's in and dropping down as far as you can go. Ideally, what you would do is make your own bracket. You can, get an IO port or something to use, like the back tubing and the brackets in order to fit it.
Yep.
But fabricate something here that gives you a much wider range of support, so that the aluminum piece or the steel that you're using behind the seat covers the biggest area towards the upper part of the seat as possible. To avoid, so like here's another, that was one of the initial type of seat brackets. That's about 2 inches tall by about 8 inches wide. And that putting against the back of the seat is going to likely push through the back of the seat if you have a severe enough impact. So what you want to do is get a good brace behind it, and then take the high density SFI or FIA 45.2 foam or type B foam, which comes in a sheet, mount a couple of sheets to it and shave it so that when you put this up against your seat, that it form fits to the back of the seat and it absorbs that energy. So if you do take an impact and you have a full load, you've got as much surface area across the top of the seat that's going to spread that load, and you're not going to cause the seat back itself to fail because you're creating an unusual load that's never really been tested. So,
Joe, in most series, are seat back braces required, or is it more of a dependent on the class? Or
it's seat back braces generally, I think I said, is required if you use an FIA seat that's beyond, if they allow an FIA seat that's over the 5 years. Or so so FIA seats are good for 5 years, actually 6 years if you buy it in January. So if your seat expired in 2019, I think BMW Club and some other, and SCCA will let you use that seat for more years, but they require you to have add a seat back brace to it. Now, and then that's where I'm coming in and saying, if you do that, okay, but make sure that seat back brace covers a wide surface area of the back of the seat, and that the high density foam that's connected to it is really covering and is supported by aluminum or something behind it. So you're
Yeah.
spreading that load over that whole back of the seat.
You want to dissipate as much of that load because it's going to take a pretty serious amount of load.
Right.
If you are using that.
And there definitely have been cases where people have used, small kind of seat back braces, and they've corrupted the integrity of the seat. So that's something you really don't want to, to get involved in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Another big thing we should talk about is seat sliders. Seat sliders are not a good thing. I think the last safety talk we did last month is I showed you the video of Joey Hand crashing at Mid-Ohio and flipping and flipping.
Yeah,
and flipping.
end over end, radiator to wing, radiator to wing. Yep.
I was looking for the pictures of the video, but I had some pictures of the seat, and you could see where the seat had actually broken loose, where things were bolted in, and the slider had failed, and the seat actually was suspended, being held in by the harnesses, and the crotch belt cut a 5-inch gash or a 4-inch gash through the fiberglass at the bottom of Ricardo's seat. Not because the seat was anything wrong, but because the loads and the mounting of the seat was not done optimally. So the best advice I can have for you is the weakest point of any racing seat is a slider. If you can avoid having a slider, then at all costs, that's something you should avoid. Now, how can I have different sized drivers and still manage to use the seat in a fixed position? Now, if the drivers are not, 6'2" and 5'1", then you can probably accomplish it by, taking out the internal padding, the center padding of the seat, and either doing a small kind of a seat pour to put a liner in for the different drivers. So you can do a seat pour that can move, the back and the bottom up and forward in order to get the driver positioned in the seat in a safer way. And the seat pours generally result in a high density foam that's going to absorb energy, but it's not going to move. So it's going to be far better than just putting, increased padding. The more padding you put into the seat, the less effective it is in keeping you restrained, because that padding, any padding that can compress is going to allow more movement down in that seat and give you the effect of a looser seatbelt.
Right, and that's something we're considering. I share a E36 M3 with drivers of pretty varying sizes. Our shortest is about 5'6", and our tallest is about 6'2". And currently we're running a slider, but we'd like to get away from it because of the inherent, like you said, that's the weakest part. It's made to move, and so naturally with enough force,
Right.
what's
and
it going to do?
All the sliders that are out there are manufactured for street cars that generally don't see, the level of impacts that we would see in the racetrack at 120, 30, depending on what car you have, 40 miles an hour.
Do you know if there's a reason, just out of curiosity, why sliders are legal in endurance racing series? Is that just something they haven't covered?
I think part of it is just simply the necessity. I mean, now I know there are a few people out there. The challenge we have is a proper slider could be built, but the cost of that proper slider would probably be as much as the seat. Yeah. And so I think there's a reluctance for anybody to make that investment, because they'll say, well, how many people are going to really do that?
Right. There's not the ROI there.
Right. The other problem that you have with different drivers in different seats is getting the crotch belts properly positioned. Now stroke belts come with, adjusters on either substrap, but when you're doing endurance racing, if it's Champ Car is not too bad because you've got some time that you can do some adjustment. But in a lot of cases, you're trying to make as quick as possible driver change as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And so you don't take care. So another option to do there is you could mount a couple of different crotch belts to different mounting points, use them as different colors, and have them preset at different lengths. So that way, with multiple drivers, so the guy who's the short guy, his crotch belt when it's in the seat's going to kind of flip forward, and the guy who's the tall guy, it's going to be, it's going to be flipped the other way. So if you're using a black belt, use a red crotch belt for one guy and a blue crotch belt for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's a way to, because you really need that substrap to be positioned so that the cam lock can be about, the top of the cam lock should be about 1 inch below the belly button, top of the belly button.
So I've very generously been offered to drive with the HMS team in the E30 that Zach's been doing a lot of preparations on for the Champ Car 24 later this summer. So what can I expect for the seating arrangements? Because Zach and I vary pretty different in height, and Zach commented.
We don't have a slider, so we can probably do a seat pour for you. But you and Zach are not too far off, I don't think.
No, I think we'll be able to work. I like driving close. I spend enough time in a stock car that I drive like a NASCAR driver with my elbows like this.
Well, if we're lucky, Bobby Lavani won't get his car ready, and we'll have him on the team too. Like he joined us one time, so.
I really hope that's the case. I'm looking forward to it.
If not, he said he promised he would pit next to us. So
good deal. I'm looking forward to meeting him. That was my car every Sunday afternoon. Green number 18. Yeah.
He's just a great guy, really great guy. We're so proud that he made the NASCAR Hall of Fame last year. That was pretty cool.
That's awesome. I didn't mean to derail your.
No, that's okay. But so the last thing, and I think we're running pretty much out of time here for today. But last thing is that if you can't do a seat pour and you want to have somebody that's a little bit higher, a little bit forward, you can get. This is an SFI high density foam. You can get this in thicknesses from, this is probably 1/4 of an inch. You can get it in, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch. You can put pieces of it together. You can cut it out into different shapes, and then you can use that to put either underneath the cushion or just sit right on it. And you can put it in the seat back, or you can put it in the seat bottom. And this is high density foam, which will absorb energy, but it's not going to compress and let that seat cushion go down, which is going to make the belts loose. Having like 3/4 of that under your butt in any case, in NASCAR, that's one of the requirements, will help you if you ever get into a situation where you kind of go into the wall and the back of the car slams up, or you flip and the car's going to slip down. That's going to really give you a lot more protection for your spine, having that kind of high density foam, because most of the seats have padding, but they don't have, even the stock padding is not made up of that, at least in FIA type seats. It's not usually made up of that type of foam.
Yeah, and that high density foam, kind of like the roll bar padding, it's almost not compressible. Right. When you sit there and you put, you grab it and put pressure on it, but in a 30G impact, it's going to compress, and it's going to compress the right amount, a standard amount of foam. Foam's just going to compress at whatever
rate. And it doesn't
rate.
Bounce you back. It absorbs it and it dissipates the energy, and it's a great solution for that. Very cool. Well, let's recap what we covered real quick for the folks that joined in recently. And before we do that, just a couple of shout outs to guys. I asked who asked to let us know what seats you're running in your car currently. And Matt McCarty's got the Cobra Suzuka Pro GT, and he loves them. That's awesome, Matt. I believe he's driving a Camaro. Buddy Jim Robb, thanks for the package. Jim Robb Racing, thanks for the package, man. I really appreciate and we're going to do, by the way, for the next through midnight, June 18th. If you're listening in on this, you can go to the HMS website and put in a promo code SEAT, SEAT-10, and get 10% off on any seats that we have in stock. So you can order the seat, and then if we don't have the seat in stock, sorry, but we'll give you a call and see if there's something that we can fit you in. We do have a pretty good inventory of seats though, so we should be good. But awesome. It's called a promo code because we have promo codes and coupon codes. So promo code SEAT-10, and that'll be good between now and midnight on the 18th. Awesome. I just commented that in the comments there. So guys, make sure to check that out. If you're in the market for a seat, that's probably one of the only opportunities you're going to get to definitely check that out. I would take advantage of it. And the HMS staff, if you have not purchased something from them before, you're going to get the best customer service in the industry. You're going to get the service from the people who set the standard for the motorsport safety industry. And so that's get
definitely
2 seats, you get free shipping. So
There you go, double up. Well,
Yeah,
equal restraints, right? If you're running at a
exactly.
DE that's going to require it, you might
Yeah.
need to consider that. So,
So I think we talked about this. We're gonna try to do this once a month. So if you have some topics that you would like to see discussed in more detail, please, send us an email or post it up in comments on the videos. And we'll probably, sometime around this time next month, we'll set up another date and try to get into those topics.
yeah, absolutely. Certainly, let us know. Feel free to shoot me a note personally, or just comment here, and we'll keep covering motorsport safety topics. So, Joe, I learned a couple things tonight. Don't mount your belts on a integrated headrest seat around the shoulders. Use your stock seat belt because they're going to slide off. Right? I thought that was really interesting, and we saw Zach give us a little demo there. That was pretty important to me because it's not something I really thought about in particular. But that is, with that wide berth and the angle of those belts, they're just going to slide right off your shoulders.
Yeah,
So I
and if
thought
you're
that was interesting.
instructing, that's something to there. And also remember never don't think to use the 3-point belt in addition to that to give you that safety, because that's going to put your neck in a little V. That's not going to be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We covered a little bit about harness bars and the angle of the seat belt going from the harness bar to the floor to its mounting position being really important. I think that's something that everybody, especially if you're modifying a street car with the harness bar, certainly something to consider. I was in a Cayman GT4 at Barber a couple weekends ago with a properly mounted harness bar running the Schroth seats, and really, really nice setup. And a lot of times those harness bars designed for a particular car are going to take that into account, or they're going to have a way. There's already somebody that's come up with a mounting solution. So that information is available. If you can't find it, reach out to HMS. Anything else you want to touch on that we discussed, Joe?
No, just, try to get rid of the sliders. Make sure any padding that you put into the seat is a high density padding of some sort. Think about doing a small, there's some nice kits out there. We have a new kit coming in with a bead set up that you can pour a real simple small liner that you put in the seat that would give you really firm support. So, and just be careful how you mount the seat. Don't make any shortcuts. Don't take brackets that they're provided with the seat and enlarge them. Find the way to do it without making modifications to existing, proven hardware.
Great advice,
And
folks. If
seat back brace, make sure the seat back brace covers, if you use
there you
it,
go,
it covers a big area
big
with some
area.
padding behind it.
That's right. As big as you can get, like the fish that you caught, right? As
Right.
big as possible. Good deal. Well, Joe, thanks again for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching. If you're in the market for a seat, you got your promo code there in the comments, seat-10 on hmsmotorsport.com. Drop the link into the product page where you can go shop seats on HMS's new website. So give that a look and make sure to check it out. Thanks again for using Apex Pro, being a part of the community, contributing, and getting this information in front of people. Let us know what you want to hear in the future. And we will see you sometime next month. Look out. We'll try to be better about publishing dates ahead of time. That's on me. Joe's ready to go. That's always my fault. So I'll do better. All right, folks. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. I shut down the live stream.